Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This week, we're digging into the crypto market from April 13th right through to the 20th, 2025.
Yep, quite a week to unpack.
We've looked at, the big players, altcoins, market signals, what the regulators are up to, ecosystem news.
And even a bit of drama on the security front.
Exactly. Our goal here is to just pull out the really key insights for you, give you the main trends without grounding you in data.
So first thing that jumps out, it's still this kind of cautious feeling, Bitcoin, Ethereum, they saw some green, but the overall mood still felt pretty tentative.
Totally agree. The crypto fear and greed index just sat there in fear the whole week, even though Bitcoin did climb, what was it, about 3.4%?
Yeah, closing around 87,461%. There was that interesting push late in the week.
Right. It tested support earlier, then kind of surged past that $86,000 resistance level.
Yeah.
What is that, late activity signal maybe?
Well, it suggests some buyers saw a value perhaps, but with the fear index staying put, maybe that conviction isn't super strong across the board.
Okay, that makes sense. And Ethereum.
Much quieter, only gained about, 0.69%, closed near $1,634. It's really continuing that trend of underperforming Bitcoin that we saw, pretty much all Q1 this year.
And that ETH-BTC ratio.
Hit a low point, yeah. It tells you where investors are perhaps placing their bets during this uncertainty.
Okay, shifting gears a bit. The altcoin space had some real fireworks, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. Radium, RAY, it popped quite a bit.
The Launch Lab thing on Solana.
Exactly. Announced that, and the price jumped, I think, over 30% for the week. And Solana meme coins.
Right, Fartcoin and Bonk. Saw some crazy games, too.
Yeah, like 69% and 24%. Seems like just general Solana ecosystem hype driving those. Render also had a good week.
But it wasn't all good news. Mantra, OM token.
Oof, yeah. That was brutal. Over 90% down.
And not a hack, right? Suspected insider activity.
Seems that way. A dump, not an external breach, which is a different kind of risk entirely.
A big reminder of that. And earlier we saw XRP, Solana, Doge dip on those tariff worries, too.
Right, external macro factors playing a role there. But the Mantra situation really highlights the internal project risks.
Looking at the broader market, then? Total market cap, trading volume. They both picked up near the end of the week.
They did, yeah. Moved up alongside Bitcoin's price action, although you always see slightly different numbers depending on where you look: CoinMarketCap, Coinbase.
True. And Bitcoin dominance stayed quite high, around 63.36%.
It did. And that usually tells us investors might be leaning towards Bitcoin, as a perceived safer harbor when the waters feel choppy.
Okay, let's talk regulation. Surprisingly busy week in the U.S.
Yeah, really significant movement on stablecoins. Bipartisan progress.
Both the Senate's Genius Act and the House's Stable Act passed committee stages.
Correct. Genius passed 18 through 6. Stable Act also cleared committee. They're aiming for similar things: federal rules, reserve requirements, protecting users.
And they're maybe targeting passage by August.
That seems to be the timeline floating around. The fact it's bipartisan is key, suggests a real push for clarity there.
And we also saw moves on that IRS DeFi broker rule, and that SAB 121 repeal earlier feels like a shift.
It could be, maybe towards a more defined regulatory picture overall, slowly, but it's movement.
Meanwhile, the tech doesn't stop. Ethereum's Pectra upgrade,
Making progress. They launched the Hudi testnet, getting ready for mainnet.
which could be April, maybe May, bringing things like account abstraction.
Yeah, account abstraction, higher validator, stake limits, key stuff for usability and the network itself. Shows development is pushing ahead regardless of market mood.
And Solana was buzzing too, wasn't it? We mentioned Radium's Launch Lab.
Right, plus seeing decent capital inflows, something like $37 million via Wormhole in just 7 days, and all that meme coin activity boosting engagement.
You can see it in the active address metric too.
Definitely. Lots of energy in that ecosystem right now.
One other thing token unlocks, we saw some big ones.
Arbitrum, Axie Infinity, Starknet, all had unlocks this week.
Millions of dollars worth hitting the market. How do those usually play out?
Well, it increases supply, so it can put downward pressure on the price if buying demand doesn't keep up. It adds potential volatility, something investors track.
Good point. And just to circle back quickly on security, that Mantra situation.
Yeah, the suspected insider dump just underscores that risks aren't always external hacks. Internal trust is huge.
So wrapping it up, a week where prices tried to recover a bit, but that fear feeling lingered. Major steps on U.S. regulation. Blockchains kept building.
And a stark reminder about internal risks with Mantra.
Leaves us with a final thought, maybe.
Yeah, I guess the question is, You've got these potentially positive regulatory signals coming out of the US. You've got innovation humming along in places like Solana. But you still have this persistent fear in the market. How does that fear influence how the market actually reacts to these good developments in the coming months? Is this caution creating an overlooked opportunity, or is it, a sensible pause before bigger shifts happen?
Definitely something to keep an eye on. Food for thought.